I'm a food delivery driver, and these are my stories. I should have realized something was wrong when they offered me $30 an hour to deliver food. Now, 6 months into this hellish job, I still tell myself that. But back then, staring at my maxed out bank account and the eviction notice on my apartment door, $30 an hour felt like a godsend. The only condition was that I couldn't quit for 3 years. 3 years of guaranteed pay would have solved all my financial problems. The interview was brief. Really, very brief. A woman named Cassandra sat across from me. The office smelled faintly of disinfectant, and there was another indescribable odor, something organic, with a hint of decay. She didn't ask about my work experience or references. She simply pushed a contract onto the table and pointed to the signature area. "The pay is very good," she said in a flat, professional tone. "This job is demanding. You'll encounter some seemingly unusual situations. Follow the rules strictly, and you'll be fine. Are you okay with that?" I signed. Looking back, I can't believe I signed without even reading the pay terms. On my first day at work, I arrived at the warehouse, in the east of the city. It was a massive concrete building with no windows, only a steel door. The fluorescent lights inside blared, making my teeth ache. A supervisor named Marcus Bain handed me an insulated delivery bag, a company phone, and a small red booklet. "Read this," he said, tapping the booklet with his nicotine-covered fingers. "Read every word. Carry it with you at all times. Follow the instructions strictly. No improvisation, no shortcuts, no exceptions." The booklet was titled First Class Carrier Delivery Procedure Manual. The cover was made of some kind of leather, unsettling warm to the touch, as if it had been taken from a living creature. "This is ridiculous," I muttered, flipping through the densely packed rules, each one more outrageous than the last. Marcus grabbed my wrist, despite the damp, stifling heat of the warehouse. His hand was icy cold. "Eric, right? I need to make this clear. This job pays so much because it's abnormal. You signed a contract. You can't quit for 3 years. So you have 2 choices. Either follow the rules and keep your job, or ignore the rules." Well, I hadn't seen anyone ignore the rules in 6 months. I don't know what happened to the last one. None of us know. Before I could respond, he released my wrist and walked away. For the next hour, I sat in my car reading the manual. My stomach tightened with each page. The company slogan was embossed in red on the inside cover. "We deliver for any living thing." I thought it was just a marketing gimmick. I was wrong. My first order arrived at 2:47 p.m. The company phone rang, and an address appeared on the screen. Street Ange Hospital, 13th floor, room 000. I pulled up the building information. Street Ange Hospital had been abandoned for 15 years after a patient murdered 3 nurses and a doctor before hanging himself in the pediatric ward. The hospital only has 12 floors. I opened the brochure and found the section labeled Hospital St. Ange, my hands trembling. The instructions were very clear. Park your car on the loading dock at the back of the building. Never use the main entrance. Enter through the service door. The door is open. If the door is locked, leave immediately and report to the dispatch center. Use the stairs to go to the 2nd floor. Do not use the elevator, even if it appears to be working. On the 2nd floor, find room 666. Knock 13 times. Wait silently for 30 seconds. Find room 333. Knock 13 times. Wait silently for 30 seconds. Return to the stairwell. You will find a new staircase leading upstairs that wasn't there before. Don't be surprised. Don't look back at the corridor you just left. Go up this staircase. It will be completely dark inside. Do not use a flashlight or your phone's light. Walk steadily upwards. You might hear breathing sounds that aren't yours. Keep going. You'll feel a noticeable drop in temperature. When you see your breath concede in front of you, you're almost there. At the end of the stairs is a door marked with the number 13. Open that door. Place the delivery bag on the floor inside the threshold. The floor might feel strange under your feet. Soft, warm, and slightly pulsating. This is normal. Don't investigate it. Put the bag down and leave immediately. Don't look into the room. If anything speaks to you, don't respond. Run down the stairs as quickly as possible. Once you reach the 2nd floor, the stairs behind you will disappear. leave the building immediately. I read the instructions 3 times, hoping to understand something. It still didn't work. The delivery bag contained only one meal, a nearly raw steak, soaking in blood. The smell made me nauseous. The St. Ange's building looked like a tombstone. The lower floors were covered in graffiti, several windows were shattered, and shards of glass glistened in the dim afternoon light. I parked my car in the loading area as instructed, and the silence became suffocating the moment I turned off the engine. No bird song, no traffic noise, nothing at all. The back door was unlocked, as expected. The rusty hinges screeched as the door opened, echoing in the empty hallway. A stench hit me. Mold, decay, and beneath it all, the smell of rotting organic matter I detected in Mrs. Cassandra's office. I switched on my phone's flashlight, illuminating the darkness, and found the stairwell. Peeling paint was everywhere on the walls. As I climbed to the second floor, I swear I heard footsteps moving upstairs, the sound perfectly synchronized with mine. The second floor hallway stretched endlessly in 2 directions. The emergency exit signs flashed a sickly yellow. I first found room 666. Its door was painted black, unmarked, except for a brass number that seemed to gleam in my flashlight's beam. I knocked 3 times, my knuckles echoing like gunshots in the silence. After the 13th knock, I heard something moving inside, a massive object dragging itself across the floor with a wet, scraping sound. 30 seconds felt like 30 hours. I stared at the timer on my phone, watching the second hand tick by, while the thing behind the door continued its slow movement, drawing even closer. When the timer showed 30 seconds, the thing suddenly stopped moving. Room 333 was at the end of the corridor. I walked towards it, only to find my footsteps no longer echoing. The sound seemed to vanish into the surrounding air, as if the hospital had swallowed all my noise. I knocked 13 times on the door of room 333. This time, the response was completely different. A child's clear, bright laughter echoed from the room. Then another child's laughter joined in. Then a third. Soon, dozens of children's laughter came from behind the door, their voices layered, distorted, all rising in pitch until they finally merged into a piercing scream that made my ears ring. I ran back to the stairwell as instructed, following behind without looking back. Even as the laughter reverberated through the corridor like a living thing, the stairwell door slammed shut behind me, and I found myself in complete darkness. My flashlight was still on. I could see the beam cutting through the air, but it illuminated nothing. The darkness swallowed the light like a black hole. Then I saw it. The new staircase leading upwards. I could see it because it was deeper than the surrounding darkness, like a negative space in the void. I put away my phone and began to climb upwards in the darkness. From what was probably the 5th floor, the sound of breathing filled the air. My breathing was slow and rhythmic, like some enormous creature drawing air into my lungs that shouldn't exist. It came from all directions, from above, below, and even from inside the walls. I continued climbing, one hand gripping the railing, the other clutching the takeout bag tightly. Around the 12th step, my breath began to condense into mist. The temperature plummeted, my fingers went numb. My breathing grew louder and more rapid, as if the source of the sound sensed my approach. Something brushed against my shoulder, cold and damp, feeling like fingers made of ice water. I suppressed a scream and continued climbing. A door suddenly appeared in front of me, marked with the number 13 in brass, emanating a faint, sickly glow. I flung it open. The floor immediately fell off. The brochure had warned me, but the reality was completely unexpected. The floor was hot, almost feverish, vibrating slightly under my feet in rhythm with my heartbeat. The touch was like stepping on a bare, untreated muscle tissue. I dropped my bag and ran, afraid to look into the room, though I glimpsed something large and pale moving in the darkness outside the threshold. As I ran down the stairs, I heard wet chewing sounds from upstairs, accompanied by groans that could be ecstasy or agony. I ran until I reached the back door and rushed into the loading area before stopping. The sun was setting, and the city was returning to its usual hustle and bustle. The phone buzzed. Delivery confirmed. $87.50 has been deposited into your account. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, trembling, before finally being able to drive away. The second order that made my impression came 3 days later. At 11:47 p.m., the phone rang. Blackstone Castle, door-to-door delivery. I opened the brochure with trembling hands and forth the relevant section. Head to the whereabouts stables. Yes, we have horses. Choose the gray mare named Patience. She knows the way. Load the goods into the saddlebag. The castle cannot be reached by car. You must ride a horse. Follow the path behind the warehouse. It will lead you through the woods. The entire journey will take approximately 40 minutes. Do not stray from the path. You may see figures in the woods. They will call to you, and sometimes you will recognize their voices. Do not respond. Do not look directly at them. Pay attention to Patient's ears. The castle gates will open. Ride through the gates into the courtyard. The well is located in the center of the courtyard. Dismount, but do not tether Patience. She will wait for you. Approach the well. You will hear various sounds coming from it. Voices, music, and laughter. These are echoes of the castle's history. They're harmless. Throw the delivery bag into the well. You will not hear the bag hitting the bottom. This is normal. There will be a response from the bottom of the well. It could be talking, singing, or screaming. Don't try to understand what it's saying. Don't look into the well. Return to Patience immediately. She will gallop back to the barn. Hold on tight, and don't look back at the castle. If you see lights on in the castle window, ride faster. The barn and stables are behind a door I hadn't noticed before, marked only by a small horseshoe. The air inside smells of hay and horse in surprisingly normal, almost comforting scents. There are 4 horses in the stable, but only one is gray. As I approach, Patient looks at me with her deep, intelligent eyes. I open her stable door, and she neighs softly, pressing her nose against my chest, as if sympathy. "You've done this before, haven't you, young lady?" I whisper. She hums, seemingly in agreement. The offering is simple, a covered pot radiating warmth and the aroma of herbs and meat. Whatever was inside, it was for someone who still preferred a hot stew. The trail began, as described in the brochure, as a narrow dirt road winding into the dense forest behind the warehouse. As soon as Patty and us stepped onto this path, the city lights went out, and we were surrounded by thick trees, unable to see even the stars. Patient moved with steady steps, her hooves softly pressing down on the soft earth. My gaze remained fixed on her ears, watching them turn, listening to the sounds of the surrounding forest. 10 minutes into the ride, the first sound came. "Eric." It was my mother's voice. My mother, who had died of cancer 2 years ago. "Eric, baby, where are you going? Come here. I miss you so much." My eyes welled with tears, but I kept my gaze focused on the horse's ears. The voices came from the depths of the woods to my left. "Please, Eric, don't you want to see me one last time? I'm right here. Look. Oh, look at me just once." Patient pressed her ear to my head and quickened her pace to a jog. The voices followed us, growing more desperate and more urgent. "You left me to die. You weren't there when I needed you. You should at least look at me." These accusations pierced my heart like knives, because some of them were true. I had missed the last few days of her life. I hadn't returned until the very last week, stuck in another state, working a job I was going to lose anyways. Guilt gnawed at me like a living, breathing thing. But I didn't look at her. Other voices joined my mother's, my ex-girlfriend, my high school best friend who had moved away, and my father, whom I haven't heard from in 5 years. They were all calling to me from the darkness, some pleading, some accusing, and some just sobbing in pain. Patience started to jog, and I gripped the reins tightly, burying my face in her mane, trying to block out the voices. I glimpsed figures moving through the woods, their gait unsteady, their limbs clumsy, and their faces slightly elongated. Thank goodness the forest had finally come to an end when we reached the clearing. The castle stood before us like a decayed tooth. 3 of its 4 towers had collapsed, and ivy completely covered the walls, as if the forest were slowly swallowing it up. But as the brochure had said, the gates were open. The rusty iron doors twisted into various shapes. We entered the courtyard, our pace gradually slowing. Moonlight filled the courtyard, bright enough to cast clear shadows. The well, a circular stone structure with an iron roof, stood in the center of the courtyard. I dismounted, my legs trembling, and carried the delivery bag towards the well. Before I even reached it, sound rang out. I was already halfway there. First came laughter, the elegant, clear laughter of nobles at a banquet. Then came music, a string quartet, playing a complex baroque piece. People spoke, languages I couldn't understand, their voices mingling and overlapping, the sound of horses' hooves on pebbles, the cries of children, women singing lullabies, men shouting commands, the clanging of swords, someone playing in Latin. It was as if all the sounds that had ever occurred in this place were simultaneously emanating from the well, compressed, superimposed, merging into a chaotic symphony. It should have been unbearable, but for some reason it wasn't. It was almost beautiful. I walked to the well and held the delivery bag to the opening. The well was pitch black, as if a void was pulling at my eyes, forcing me to look deeper. I released the bag. There was no sound of the bag falling to the bottom. It was as if the echoes of history were playing back, growing louder and more frantic. Then a voice answered me. A voice from the abyss, speaking an ancient language. It wasn't speaking to me, it was speaking through me. I could feel its sounds vibrating in the soft tissues of my bones, teeth, and internal organs. Its meaning, it passed through my consciousness, reaching a primal part of my brain, a place that understands hunger, darkness, and the patience of those who live forever in the abyss. It was saying thank you. I ran back to Patience, and out of pure fear, I smoothly mounted her. She needed no urging, turned, and charged towards the gates, her hooves sparking in the cobblestone. As we galloped through the gates, I made a mistake. I glanced back. Every window in the castle was filled with light, candles, torches. The whole building radiated a warm glow, brimming with life and celebration. I could see shadows moving behind the glass. People were dancing and dining. In the highest window of the last remaining tower, a figure watched us. It was incredibly tall, and even from this distance, I could see its head was oddly shaped, too narrow, too long, and wearing something on its head, like antlers. It raised an arm, as if waving, or perhaps offering a blessing. Patience galloped faster than any horse I'd ever seen before, the forest on either side fading into blurs of darkness. We only slowed down when we saw the lights of the warehouse ahead. I just dismounted my horse when my phone buzzed. $134.50 have been deposited into your account. Before the theater delivery, I'd done 2 months of normal deliveries, or rather, the normality of the job. An order was left on a doorstep. No one answered, but the door opened automatically 30 seconds after I left. A midnight delivery to a cemetery, placed on a specific tombstone, with singing in the distance. A package was handed to a taxi driver who didn't say a word. I looked at him for 5 seconds and couldn't remember what he looked like. But all of that was manageable. Terrifying, but manageable. The theater delivery was different. 2:17 a.m. Phone buzzing. Theater District Subway Station, Platform 7. The section about this delivery in a brochure is longer and more detailed than the others, with appendices and footnotes and different handwriting, as if several deliverymen had added warnings over the years. The Theater District subway station had 6 platforms. Platform 7 is only open between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. You must complete the delivery within this time frame. Enter through the main entrance on 7th Street. Station staff will not assist you. This is normal. Purchase a token from the machine. Tokens are required. Debit cards are not accepted. The machine only takes cash. Insert exactly $2.75. Go down to Platform 1, walk to the end, which is the tunnel's entrance. There's a door marked Employees Only, Platform 7. This door will be open during delivery hours. The stairs behind the door are deeper than usual. Count the steps. If there are more than 127, you've gone too far. Return to the top and start again. Platform 7 is empty. It is always empty. If you see anyone else on Platform 7, leave immediately and report to the dispatch center. Do not deliver goods. Walk to the center of the platform. You'll see a bench that is different from the other station's furniture. It is older, ordinarily decorated, made of dark wood, and has brass fittings. Place your delivery item on this bench. A train will arrive in 3 minutes. This train is not on the timetable and is not a regular subway train. There will be passengers in the carriage. Do not make eye contact with anyone in the carriage. If they talk to you or gesture to you, Do not respond. The doors will not open. This is intentional. Passengers will take packages from the bench in some unknown way. You do not need to know the specific method. After the train departures, wait a full 60 seconds, then return the way you came. Do not run. Running will attract attention. Delivery man, J.M.'s tip. Trains sometimes stop at the wrong spot. If the door coincides with where you are standing, close your eyes and count to 30. Don't open your eyes, no matter what you hear or feel. Delivery man, D.R.'s tip. I heard someone calling my name in the train car. I accidentally responded. 3 days later, I heard the same sound coming from my closet. I moved. I suggest you strictly follow the rules. The package was a white cardboard box, sealed with red tape. It was heavier than it looked, and the contents made a wet, slippery sound when I picked it up. The box was cold, colder than the warehouse freezer. At this time, the subway station was deserted, save for the buzzing and flashing fluorescent lights. The ticket booth attendant was an old man reading a newspaper, and as the pamphlet said, his gaze never left the paper as I passed. The automatic ticket machine mechanically swallowed my banknotes and spat out a brass token that looked like it came from another era. The token bore an unfamiliar subway system logo. The metal was warm in my palm. Platform 1 was deserted, the tiles gleaming under the glaring lights. I walked towards the end of the tunnel, my footsteps echoing, each echo accompanied by a new sound, another set of footsteps, slightly out of sync with mine, coming from a direction I couldn't discern. A door marked Employees Only, Platform 7, stood out starkly against the concrete and steel of the station, for it was made of wood. The wood was a deep, almost black cover, carved with symbols that were almost unbearable to look at. Behind the door, a spiral staircase descended, the walls on either side pressed tightly against the floor. I counted each step aloud, my voice weak, swallowed by the enclosed space. 27, 28, 29. The air grew cold and more oppressive, carrying the smell of metal and electricity. 63, 64, 65. I heard music coming from above or below. I thought jazz, the kind played in underground bars during Prohibition. 99, 100, 101. My phone died at step 112, plugging me into darkness, with only the intermediate flashing of the emergency light. 123, 124, 125, 126, 127. The bottom door was modern, like other emergency exits in the subway system. I pushed it open. Something was off about Platform 7, but it wasn't immediately obvious. Its dimensions were wrong. Too long and too narrow, the ceiling too high, the color of the tiles on the walls were wrong too, a deep regretting that no urban planner would approve, and it was eerie, silent, as if the platform was in this mysterious space where sound couldn't travel normally. The bench was in the center of the platform, just as described. It was a rustic beauty, like furniture in a mansion, not a subway station. The brass fittings gleamed, and the wood was intricately carved with patterns. I thought they resembled vines or perhaps snakes. I placed the white box on the bench and stepped back. The wait was agonizing. My watch showed 2:34 a.m. I still had time, plenty of time before the delivery deadline, but every second felt like an hour. The silence was oppressive, making my eardrums ache. I began to perceive my breathing and heartbeat with unusual clarity. At 2:37 a.m., I felt it first, then heard it, a vibration in the air, the change in air pressure making my ears ring. Then came the sound, the distinctive rumble of an approaching train. The train emerging from the tunnel wasn't modern. It was old, incredibly old, like a relic from the early days of the subway. The carriages were made out of dark wood and brass, bathed in warm yellow light. Through the windows, I could see the passengers. My blood froze instantly. Passengers were dressed in clothing from different eras. A woman with a 1920s style modern dress. A man wore a Victorian-era suit. A child wore tattered clothes from the Great Depression. A soldier wore a World War II uniform. They sat or stood, swaying slightly with the train's movement, each staring intently at me. Something was off about their expressions, not obviously, not in a way I could articulate, but something felt off. Their proportions, their expressions, even the rhythm of their blinks. The train slowed, slower and slower. For a moment, I even thought it would stop right in front of me, the doors right in front of me. Just as I was about to cover my eyes, the train suddenly moved forward 3 feet and stopped. The doors didn't open, but passengers by the windows pressed their hands against the glass, their handprints condensing into fog on the cold surface. Some laughed, others stared intently out the window, their gazes focused and heavy. The feeling sent chills down my spine. In the car closest to me, a woman mouthed something to me. I couldn't hear her through the glass, but I could read her lips.
Can you hear me?
I turned my face away, my gaze fixed on the floor, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. Something was knocking at the window, a rapid, urgent knock, as if trying to get my attention. I didn't turn around. More knocking came from several windows, an intermediate rhythm sounding almost like Morse code. Then came voices, somewhat muffled through the glass but still clearly audible, all at once.
Look at us. We just want to talk. Don't be so rude. Eric, is that you?
The last voice made me shudder. It sounded like my mother's voice again, but distorted.
Eric, is that you?
As if it was coming from a broken speaker.
Eric, darling, I'm right here. I've been waiting for you. Look at me. Just this once, please.
I tried not to look up, my eyes burning. I silently counted down the seconds, trying to block out the sounds. The white box on the bench was gone. I didn't see it disappear. I didn't hear it. It was just gone. The sound stopped abruptly. The train jerked off, slowly at first, then gradually accelerating until it disappeared into the tunnel on the other side of the platform. The rumble faded into the distance, and I was once again alone in absolute silence. I counted to 60, each number feeling like a small victory. Then I walked, not running, through my instincts, screaming at me to sprint back to the door, up the 127 steps, across the station, and into the city night, where the air had never tasted so sweet. I had just reached the ground when my phone rang. $203.75 has been deposited into your account. I probably have 1 or 2 more stories to tell, but more orders have come in, so I'll be back. I know I haven't uploaded in over a year. Yeah, I know. I've been doing this for almost 2 years now. They even got me a cake for my first work anniversary. Okay, I think I have some excuses. Around my first year on the job, I started having hallucinations, moving, irregular shadows in my peripheral vision, faces and wallpaper patterns and figures standing in doorways, but they vanished when I looked at them directly. I recognize these signs. I've been battling them since I was 19. Bipolar 2 disorder, with mixed episodes. That's why updates are so hard, especially since the job is really demanding. Anyway, this is the 4th story. I opened the manual and found the entry. My heart sank when I saw how brief it was. Those complicated delivery assignment had pages of rules and step-by-step instructions, and if followed strictly, they'd be safe. Short instructions were different. Short instructions meant almost no one could help. Deliver to 1247 Carpenter Street between 7 and 8 p.m. Ring the doorbell. Wait. An elderly man will open the door. He will invite you in. You must accept. He will pour you tea. Accept the tea, but don't drink it. He will tell you a story. Listen to it completely without interrupting. After the story, give him the item. He will give you something in return. Accept it gladly. Leave through the front door. Don't look back at the house. Delivery man MK's notes. The story I heard was different each time. The one I heard was about a woman who drowned her child. I still dream about it. Delivery man PL's message. He gave me a photo. The person in the photo is me, taken from my own apartment. I don't know when the photo was taken, if I've changed all the locks. I've started sleeping with the lights on. Delivery man TH's message. Keep whatever he gives you. I tried throwing mine away, but it came back. It always comes back. The package was a glass container containing a small plant I didn't recognize. When I wasn't looking at it directly, the plant moved. I could see it moving out of the corner of my eye, its leaves spreading out like fingers. It was actually a familiar neighborhood. a beautiful area with well-maintained houses and neatly trimmed lawns. The house itself was a simple two-story Victorian building, painted light blue with white accents. It didn't look like a dangerous place at all. It looked like the kind of place where Grandma would bake cookies and knit blankets. At 7:26 p.m., I rang the doorbell. The elderly man who answered was exactly as I expected. White hair, kind eyes, wearing a cardigan and slippers. He had a genuine smile on his face.
"Oh, the delivery man has arrived. Please come in, come in. I've been waiting for you."
His voice was gentle and kind, like that of a kind grandfather. I entered the house and he gently closed the door. The house was spotless. Every surface was covered with a tablecloth. Family photos hung on the walls, the children, the grandchildren, and a woman who must have been his wife. The air was filled with the scent of lemon polish and aromatherapy. An old-fashioned grandfather clock in the corner ticked softly.
Sit,
He said, gesturing to the patterned sofa.
I'll go make some tea."
He went into the kitchen, and I sat down, placing the glass container on my lap. The plant pressed its leaves against the glass, and I swore that something in the house was watching me, something that wasn't quite an eye. The old man returned with a teapot, porcelain cups, and matching teapot, and a bowl of sugar cubes. He carefully poured 2 cups of tea, as if he had done countless times before.
"Earl Grey,"
he said, handing me a teacup.
"a touch of lavender, my own blend."
The aroma was enticing. I took the cup, but didn't bring it to my lips. He sat down in the armchair opposite me, took a sip, and smiled.
"I think I should tell you a story now. That's how it is, isn't it?"
I nodded, hesitant to speak.
"It's a story,"
he began, his voice deepening and becoming magnetic.
"about a delivery man who broke the rules.
A chill ran down my spine.
Actually, he was a lot like you. Young, despite for money, and willing to ignore the oddities of the job. At first, he did very well, meticulously following every instruction. But fear is like acid, slowly eroding you until you just want to escape."
The old man's gaze never left me. His eyes were no longer friendly.
On his 31st day of work, he received a delivery order to an apartment building. It was simple, just place the food on the door marked with the red X. But he kept having nightmares, seeing strange things. When he arrived at the building, he found the door marked with the red X's.
The tickling of the old-fashioned clock was deafening.
The brochure said to catch the dispatch center if anything seemed amiss, but he was too tired, really too tired, and he didn't want to wait, so he just went with his gut and chose the middle door. He put the food down, turned around, and left.
The old man took another sip of tea.
The problem is that order wasn't for a real person. It was for something else, and something with specific delivery requirements. He delivered it to the wrong door. Mistakes always have consequences. 3 days later, they found his car outside the apartment building. The engine was still running, the door was open, the delivery bag was on the front seat, empty, but the delivery man was still missing. Although people in the building sometimes say they heard knocking coming from the walls, the rapid knocking sounded like someone trapped, trying to escape.
The old man put down the teacup and smiled again, this time with an ancient and eerie quality.
The moral of the story is, rules are not arbitrarily made, nor are they suggestions, much less principles that can interrupt arbitrarily.
He explained, like my grandfather explaining a fairy tale. He held out his hand.
"Please, give me the thing."
My hands trembled as I handed him the glass container. He took it and placed it on the table beside him. The plant inside immediately began to climb up the glass wall, its form now clearly visible.
"Now, as is customary, I'll give you a gift."
He took a small object wrapped in white cloth from the pocket of his cardigan. It was heavy and icy cold when it was handed to me. I slowly unwrapped it. Inside was an old-fashioned silver pocket watch, intricately engraved, but upon opening it, inside of the watch face, a photograph came into view. It was me, sleeping in my apartment. It was taken from the perspective of someone standing at the foot of my bed, looking down at me. The photograph had been taken the previous night.
"A reminder,"
the old man said kindly,
"that you are never truly alone."
I stood, my legs barely supporting my weight.
Thank you for the tea, I said in a weak whisper. You're welcome, he said. Have a safe trip, Eric. I walked towards the front door, the pocket watch burning hot in my pocket. I didn't look back at the house, though I could feel him watching me the whole way until I reached my car. My phone buzzed. $156.25 had been deposited into your account. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. I sat in the living room, lights on, staring at the bedroom doorway, wondering if something was standing there, lurking out of sight, spying on me like a photographer, spying on me as I slept. The pocket watch was on my coffee table. I tried putting it in the drawer, but an hour later, it was back on the table. I tried leaving it in the car. When I came back from the bathroom, it was on the kitchen counter. It always comes back. Then I wanted to tell you a nice story, to give myself a break while typing. After all, this job isn't all about cannibalistic monsters. At 3:33 p.m., the phone rang. I almost didn't want to look, but the contact bound me like chains. The address, garden. No street, no house number, just those 2 words. When I opened the booklet and found that entry, it was different from the others. The handwriting was older and more refined, as if someone had carefully written every letter. When you receive the package sent to the garden, you'll receive a precious gift. Cherish this, good fortune. Drive north on Highway 888 until you see a dirt road marked with white stones. There are no road signs. You'll recognize it when you see it. Drive 7.7 miles along this road. Even if the distance seems off, your odometer reading will still be accurate. Park at the end of the road. Walk through the gate will be open. The path in the garden is obvious. Follow the path to the center of the garden, where you'll see someone tending to the plants. This person will talk to you. Listen carefully. They may know something about you that others don't. Important, they may offer you something: food, drink, rest, comfort, or even answers. You can accept food or drinks. You can rest if invited. You can listen for answers. However, you must absolutely not accept any physical goods or gifts, nor touch anything offered to you, except for food or drinks offered directly to you. The rule is absolutely valid. Whatever is offered, no matter how much you want it, you must refuse any physical goods, except food and drink. You will know after the meeting. Return the way you came. Messenger AM's message. Whatever you do, follow Rule 7. My previous messenger did not follow it. They found his car at the end of the dirt road, the driver's side door open, and the engine still running. They never found him, but sometimes delivery requests still come from the garden, and the customer's name is his. This delivery was special. A simple brown paper bag, like the kind for lunch. Inside was freshly baked bread, still warm, and a bottle of unlabeled wine. The aroma of the bread was intoxicating. The fragrance of yeast was flawless. Highway 888 stretched north from the city, through the suburbs and into rolling farmland. It took me 40 minutes to see it. A dirt road paved with smooth, rounded white pebbles like eggs. There were no signs or markers indicating where it led, but I was absolutely certain this was it. The road wound its way through fields of wildflowers that shouldn't be blooming in late autumn. Their color were too vibrant, too perfect. Blues, purples, and reds, as if radiating an inner glow. My odometer ticked up: 1.2 miles, 3.5 miles, 5.8 miles, and 7.7 miles. At the end of the road was a gate made of living wood, trees that had grown into an archway, their branches intertwined and lush. Through the archway, I saw a garden. It was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. White gravel paths meandered through flower beds, past fruit-laden trees, and through vine-covered gazebos. The air was filled with the scent of jasmine and honeysuckle, and a unique fragrance that reminded me of my childhood summers, Christmas mornings, and all of my fondest memories. The path led me deeper into the garden, past roses that seemed to whisper, telling me something in a language I could almost understand, and past apple trees where a gentle breeze rustled the branches, creating a crisp, bell-like sound. Everything here was brimming with life. Unlike ordinary plants, they were sentient. They watched and they welcomed me warmly. In the center of the garden was an open space, with a simple wooden table and 2 chairs. Standing there, tending to the cluster of white lilies, was a man. He was ordinary in every way, of medium height with brown hair, wearing work clothes, and his fingernails stained with dirt and sawdust. But when he turned to look at me, his eyes were ancient and kind, filled with a sorrow that seemed to encompass the entirety of human history. "Eric," he said, his voice like a gentle stream, like a breeze rustling through leaves, like all the comforting sounds in the world. "It's a pleasure to have you here, but please sit down. You've brought me bread and wine, which is very kind of you. Would you like to share with me?" I sat there speechless. He gently took the bag from my hands, broke open the bread, and poured the wine into 2 wooden glasses that had appeared on the table. "Eat," he said. "Drink. You're safe here." The bread tasted like every delicious meal I've ever had. The wine was just right, warming my body and soul. "You have so many questions," he said gently. "Everyone who comes here has questions. I may not be able to answer them all, but I will do my best." Who are you?" I asked softly. He smiled. "People have called me by many names. Gardener, shepherd, teacher, friend. You can call me anything that makes you feel comfortable." I am dead? No. This place is between 2 worlds. It's the end of all roads and the beginning of all paths. Every messenger eventually comes here, if they live long enough. It's a blessing." He took a sip of his drink and looked at me with those ancient eyes. "By the way, your mother was good. She wanted you to know. She understood why you couldn't be with her until the end. The living have obligations to the living, and she never blamed you, not even for a moment." My throat tightened and tears welled into my eyes. And Cookie? And Cookie?" he continued, and I gasped. "Cookie was my dog. Cookie, my dog, that golden retriever I got on my 5th birthday, slept at the foot of my bed every night until I was 13. When cancer took its life, it was my best friend from childhood, accompanying me through the difficult times of my parents' divorce and through every tough moment of my growing up." "It's here too," the man said softly. "Would you like to see it?" As if summoned, I heard the rustling of paws on the gravel and the eager panting of a happy animal. Then Cookie slipped into the clearing, looking exactly as I remembered, young, healthy, and full of energy. He ran straight to me, tail wagging widely, his whole body swaying. I could see every detail of him. The white markings on his chest, the darker fur around his eyes, and those warm brown eyes I had gazed into countless times. "You can pet him if you want," the man said. "He misses you." I reached out, my hands trembling slightly, longing to feel that soft fur again, to hear again the satisfied sigh he made when I scratched his ear. Then I stopped. The little booklet, Rule 7, you may not touch anything handed to you, unless it is food or drink handed to you directly. My hands hovered in the air, just inches from the Cookie's head. He looked up at me with those trusting eyes, his tail still wagging, not understanding why I wouldn't touch him. I can't," I choked out. "The rules, I can't." The man looked at me, his eyes unreadable. "You understand the rules exist with the point of being here." I shook my head, tears streaming down my cheeks. Cookie whispered softly, seeming confused by my rejection. "Because this place is real, Eric. The garden is real, Cookie's real, and your mother is real. Somewhere deep within the garden. But you don't belong here yet. You are still alive, still bound to the world of flesh and time. If you touch anything here, you'll establish a connection, a debt, and debts must be repaid." He stood up, Cookie sitting at his feet, still looking at me hopefully. He walked to where I was sitting and placed his hand on my shoulder. His touch was warm and real. "Your choice was wise. Even heartbroken, you followed the rules. That takes strength most people don't possess." He smiled. You'll get there. You'll get through these 3 years, Eric. Not everyone can do it, but you certainly can. Cookie stood up, walking back to me and pressing her body against my leg. I struggled to restrain myself from touching it. I have to go. I choked out. I know. But before you go. He pulled a small leather collar with a brass tag from his pocket. Cookie's collar. I can't give this to you, but I can give you a tip. He whistled. Cookie barked, and then turned and ran back into the woods along the path. I stumbled through the garden, tears drying on my cheeks, the taste of bread and wine still lingering on my tongue. The door closed softly behind me. No phone notification, no payment received. I didn't know what my tip was. I returned home exhausted and slept soundly for the first time in days. Until 3 days later, I sat in my apartment, staring blankly at my ever-present pocket watch, when I heard scratching at the door. I cautiously opened the door, my heart pounding with anxiety, fearing some delivery man might have brought something terrifying. After all, the last time had given me quite a fright. But standing in the doorway was a dog. A young, healthy golden retriever, about 4 months old. It had a white stripe down its back. The fur around its chest and ears were darker. It raised its head, looking at me with warm brown eyes, wagging its tail. It looked exactly like Cookie. A collar hung around its neck with a note attached. A grateful customer's tip. Ugh, this dog, I'll still call him Cookie, made me feel better for about 2 weeks. Then the dreams started getting worse. Not the delivery nightmares. I'd learned to isolate those nightmares, to archive them deep into my brain where I wouldn't touch them during the day. No, these dreams were different. They were fragmented and kaleidoscopic, with me standing in several places simultaneously, time shifting back and forth, hearing every thought of everyone I've ever met, like overlapping radio stations playing in my head. I'd been managing my condition with medication and psychotherapy. But lately, the line between maniac, lunatic, and depressive fog was becoming increasingly blurred. So I made a decision. Roy Dorman, my father, I hadn't spoken to him in 11 years. The last time I called him was because my mother died. I was going to ask him what he was doing, or at least what he had done wrong. I went to him. His address was in a once prosperous part of the city. The apartment buildings were dilapidated. The windows of the corner shop were fitted with iron bars, and people in such places kept to themselves, each with their own secrets they didn't want others to discover. Let me preface this by saying my relationship with him wasn't good. He wasn't very sober. Even before his divorce, he drank, and then, to me, 11 years old, he was just a presence, no longer my father. His apartment was on the 3rd floor, the stairwell reeking of cigarette smoke and mildew. I stood outside his door for a full 5 minutes before finally knocking. The person who opened the door looked decades older than he actually was. Roy Dorman was 53, but looked 70. His hair was mostly gray, his face was wrinkled, and his hands trembled slightly. But I couldn't tell if it was from age or from the side effects of medication or withdrawal.
Eric,
he said with hoarse.
My God, Eric.
Hi, Dad. We looked at each other, across the threshold, 11 years of silence filling the space between us.
Do you want to come in? Sorry, the place is a mess. I didn't expect it.
I just wanted to talk, I said. Can we talk? He nodded and stepped aside. The apartment was small and cluttered, but not dirty. Newspapers were piled in the corner. A horse race was playing on the television, the volume muted. The walls were covered in sticky notes, and I realized then that they were reminders of things he needed to remember. Take his medication, pay rent, eat lunch. I recognized the system. I had something similar in my own apartment, except my reminders were to check the manual, follow the rules, and live well.
You look good,
he says, though we both knew it was a lie. I was thin, had dark circles under my eyes, and hadn't had a haircut in months.
Anyway, better than me.
I've been working, I said. Actually, I'm doing pretty well. A strange look crossed his face.
What kind of work?
Uh, Delivering takeout, the food delivery, the pay, not very unusual, but there are some conditions.
He was silent for a long time, then went to his kitchenette and poured 2 cups of coffee from a coffee pot that looked like it had been sitting there for hours. The coffee was bitter and burnt, but I drank it anyways.
I used to deliver food.
He finally spoke.
After your mother and I divorced, after I messed up all my decent jobs because of those bastards, because of gambling, because of all that.
He slumped heavily into his armchair, held together with duct tape.
What was the company called back then? But the job was the same. Unfamiliar place, unfamiliar customers. Those rules only make sense when they're broken.
My coffee cup froze in midair.
You worked for them?
3 years. Like what you're about to do. Earned enough to pay off debts, settle down, and start over.
He laughed, but the laughter was bitter.
Of course, after 5 years I gambled away most of the money, but it was all my fault. I had nothing to do with the job, the contract.
He continued, taking a sip of coffee.
You can't talk about it. You can't talk to people who haven't worked there. Remember, those words vanish the moment they leave your mouth, but your eyes.
I looked around the room, checking for anything that shouldn't be there. He took another sip of coffee.
You work for them now. So we can talk.
I put my cup down, my hands trembling slightly.
Who's your manager?
A guy named Marcus. A weirdo. Knows things he shouldn't know. Laughs like a cat that's eaten a canary.
Roy's expression became vacant.
Near the end of my 3 years, I asked him how long he'd been in the business.
You know what he said?
I shook my head.
He said he'd been managing couriers since the day of the carriages. He said he'd witnessed the rise and fall of empires. He said for people like him, times were different. Those who made certain choices accepted certain promotions.
The apartment suddenly felt small and cold.
Marcus is still there.
I whispered.
He's still my manager.
Roy nodded slowly.
As far as I know, he's been there for at least 50 years, maybe longer.
He leaned forward.
Eric, listen to me. It's intoxicating, but it also makes us vulnerable.
Vulnerable to what?
Like them, saying after 3 years, accepting promotions, benefits, endless work.
He grabbed my wrist, unusually firm.
Promise me one thing. Promise me that after 3 years, you'll leave. Take your money, run, and never look back.
Dad.
Promise me, Eric. The 11 years I've spent with you been because I couldn't control myself. Because I let my inner demons prevail. Don't let those inner demons prevail either. 3 years. Not a day more.
I gently pulled his hands away. I promise. We talked for another hour. He told me stories for his deliveries, of a mansion where each room corresponded to a different season, of a lighthouse that guided ships that sank a century ago, and of a library where books rewrote themselves as you read it. These stories might have sounded absurd to others, but I understood them completely. As I left, he hugged me, and I could feel how vulnerable he had become. That was about 1.5 years ago, when I decided to start taking medication. Cookies were waiting for me in the car. As I drove away, I saw my father standing in the apartment window through the rearview mirror, watching me leave. The pocket watch in my pocket buzzed. This couldn't be. It was just a pocket watch. But now everything was more than just a pocket watch. I opened it and found the photograph had changed. The photograph showed my father and me standing in his apartment. But now there was a third figure standing behind us. He was tall, his face blurred. I found Marcus in the warehouse office. He was flipping through some documents that looked like they were written in an ancient language that predates writing. As I walked in, he looked up, a wide, overly bright smile, revealing too many teeth. This time, he wasn't pretending to be an ordinary man.
Eric, how can I help?
I closed the door behind me and sat down without waiting for an invitation.
My father used to work for you. Roy Dorman, yes, I remember him. He was a good messenger. Mostly followed the rules. He had some inner demons, but who doesn't?
Marcus put down his pen. I noticed the pen looked like it was made of bone.
You've seen him? How come you...
I stopped. I wanted to say it. How come you've lived so long? A stupid question.
He said you've been in the business a long time.
Really? Marcus leaned back in his chair.
And what do you think, Eric? I think the manual says I shouldn't say the word resign to you, but it doesn't say I can't talk about work. Talk about how long you've been here. Talk about what kind of person you are.
Marcus's smile widened.
A keen eye. You, the Dorman family, have always been clever. You know, your great uncle also worked for us. That was in 1923. He held on for 2 years and 3 months, then tried to escape. Of course, we eventually found him. The contract was valid.
I felt a chill.
What happened to him? He became part of our collection. We will always have a use for those who break contracts.
Marcus stood up, walked to the window, and looked at the warehouse floor.
But, you won't run away, right, Eric? You'll follow the rules, serve your full 3 years, and then make your choice.
What choice?
The same choice I made 743 years ago. Or you won't have a choice at all.
He turned to face me, and in that instant, I saw his true face. Something ancient, patient, utterly inhuman, cloaked in the skin of a middle-aged man.
Leave with your sealed memories and silent tongue. Return to the normal world. Or stay. Accept the promotion. Become part of this machine. You have an order,
he said to me. I glanced at it. There really was one. To the zoo.